All right, welcome back. You're still watching Morning Live here on SABC News. Now, former SABC COO and the current Group Executive of Corporate Affairs at the SABC, Hlaudi Motsoeneng, seems to be gaining more publicity in the local media. On the other hand, most political parties have been raising concerns about his recent appointment after the court ruled out that they should follow proper procedures. We discussed this further with political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe. Prof, good morning to you. Nice to have you with us here on Morning Live.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for your time. Now, from your point of view, why is Hlaudi Motsoeneng seems to be enjoying a lot of popularity and support wherever he goes?
Well, because he is picking up on a discussion and a debate that we have sort of suppressed. We must remember that our constitution is very clear about the issue of transformation. But it's also important to understand that when we signed the constitution, we did not change the material conditions of black people. So it was assumed that with the new government and with the constitution, we'll embark on the serious transformation. And 22 years later, what people are saying is that we don't see this transformation taking place. Whether you're looking at the courts, there's been some changes, but there's some people who feel that is not enough. You look at the issues of management in this country. The people say it will take about 200 years if we go at this pace to be able to effect transformation. You look at the issues of land. Black people are still foreigners in their own country. They're still bundled in small squatter camps, and most of the land that they should be occupying has not been returned to them. So people see this, and when it comes to education, you find the same thing. You have professions, you have accounting professions, you have, whether it's in the sciences, you always find that black people are outsiders. So the language of transformation is a language that is intimidating, and it's very important for people to understand that the constitution did legitimize the inequalities, but suggested that for you to address them, there is a process. I mean, I have been working in the human settlement. If you look at one of the challenges that we had faced was to say our people will find houses closer to the cities. But through the machinations and the lack of foresight, you find that we have reproduced the apartheid spatial patterns. Our people still live far away from the cities, and they spend more money. I mean, almost 40% of their money that they earn is spent on transport. So that is one thing that we're supposed to have addressed, and we had actually failed to address. So when you begin to deal with that, you start dealing with the material interest of those who have benefited from the apartheid system. So transformation, by definition, will create a discomfort. So when you have people like Hlaudi Motsoeneng raise those issues, you'll find that they'll be under attack. So
are you saying that he's being attacked for the fact that he's one person who believes in transformation?
Well, I think if you listen to some of the attacks, they are more around transformation. Of course, there might be issues that you guys may have to deal with, which have to do with managerialism or his approach to management. But what you also find is that the language seems to be a language of resisting a discussion around transformation. For instance, the issue that he raises of procurement. If you were to, what I've always challenged this government, is that let's look at each and every department and look at who gets the tenders. Often it is always given that it's black people, but if you look talking about billions of tenders, most of the money goes back to white hands. And this is a challenge that some of us have put. Whether you go to Department of Human Settlement, whether you go to communications, whether you go to the IT, all those things. Once you start doing a thorough analysis, you'll find that we're actually failing, despite being in a position to change and effect. So those who try to effect changes are always under attack. When Hlaudi Motsoeneng came from England and came to WITS and started talking about the changes that we need to transform South Africa and universities, he was under serious attack by highly qualified scholars, precisely because he talked about the issue of transformation.
So does it have something to do with race, maybe?
Yeah, once you talk about transformation, you are saying let the status quo change. And what it also means that the people who benefit from status quo are going to be uncomfortable about that. And this is one of the things that we had failed to address. I mean, you listen to our young people, the students, what they're raising is the issue of transformation. At the moment, their concerns are around the notion of fees must fall. But when you listen to them carefully, they're saying we don't even see ourselves represented in the curriculum. We also see ourselves excluded. And there's also what we have not addressed is the issues of racism, institutional racism, the notion that even when you go to places, you find that people begin to doubt who you are. I mean, even our own black people begin to doubt the black people because we have not addressed the psychological impact that apartheid has actually done to all of us.
But will the situation change for the better, Prof? I mean, we've also seen criticism mainly leveled against the state-owned enterprises, especially those that are led by black people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, when one talks about a lack of transformation, it's not only white people who are opposed to transformation. You have every system. What it does, it enlists the services of the oppressed. Even during slavery, you always had black people who will be used by slave owners to participate in the enslavement of their own people. So just because you have put the black person somewhere there does not mean that change will happen. This is also what your CEO was saying, that we need, or former CEO was saying, that you also need to look at that sometimes you find white people who may be more progressive than black people. So it's not only an issue of color, it's also the color of one's politics. Are your politics geared towards transforming this society? And if you look at some of the so-called civil society groupings that have mushroomed overnight, when you listen to them, you don't hear them talk about issues of transformation. It is always an obsession around attacking individuals. But when you go back to the people that we hold in high esteem, the likes of Mandela's, the like of Biko, the Lutulis, what they were dealing with were systems. It was never about individuals, because individuals can come and go. But if the system is a system of oppression, I mean, you have some people in the mining sector who speak a lot, but they will target individuals, but they'll never talk about the system that super exploits black people, that separate black people from their own families. So that is the challenge we face. Our challenge is that we get diverted from dealing with real issues to talk about individuals. And that is the problem.
Oh, I'm afraid that's where you're going to leave it. Quite an interesting one this morning, but that's where you're going to leave it due to time constraints. Prof, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. There you have it. That's the political analyst, Professor Sipho Seepe. We're taking a break. Morning Live continues after this.